The notion that confidence is something we must first conjure, a shimmering cloak of self-assurance to be donned before we dare to step into the arena, is one of the most pervasive and pernicious myths of modern personal development. We are sold a gospel of affirmation, of standing before mirrors and reciting our own worth, of visualizing success so fervently that it has no choice but to materialize. And while there is a certain power in directing our focus, this approach places the cart of belief squarely before the horse of action. The truth, the far more gritty and authentic truth, is that confidence isn't built by thinking positive thoughts. It's built by doing difficult things while your brain screams at you to stop. Belief is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite for it. Consider for a moment the architecture of the human nervous system. As a psychologist, I must draw our attention to the ancient machinery we all carry within us. The amygdala, that almond-shaped cluster of neurons, is not wired for success, happiness, or self-actualization. It is wired for survival. Its primary function is to scan the environment for threats, and it interprets anything novel, any uncertain outcome, any potential for failure or social ridicule, as a threat akin to a predator in the tall grass. When you contemplate asking for a promotion, speaking on a stage, or even simply striking up a conversation with a stranger, this ancient sentinel does not cheer you on. It screams. It floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline, urging you to freeze, flee, or fawn. It tells you, with the full force of evolutionary authority, to stop, to believe that you must first silence this internal alarm through sheer force of positive thinking is to declare war on your own biology. You cannot reason with a frightened lizard. You cannot convince your amygdala that the stage is safe with a clever mantra. The only language it truly understands is action, followed by survival. When you, despite the symphony of terror playing in your mind, take the difficult step, when you send the email, utter the first word, take the leap, and you do not, in fact, die. A profound piece of evidence is logged in the subconscious ledger. The amygdala's prediction of catastrophe is proven false. The next time a similar situation arises, the alarm may still sound, but it is slightly quieter, its authority slightly diminished. This is the neurological bedrock of confidence, not the absence of fear, but the repeated demonstration that the fear's most dire predictions are unreliable. This is where the life coach in me leans forward, hands on the table, and asks the practical question, so what do we do? We must reframe the entire project of building self-belief. It is not an internal cerebral process of self-persuasion. It is an external behavioral process of evidence collection. You are an archaeologist of your own potential, and the artifacts you seek are not beautiful thoughts, but completed acts of courage, however small. Start not with the summit, but with the first foothold. The goal is not to feel fearless, but to act despite the fear. Identify a domain where your confidence is lacking, socially, professionally, physically. Now break down a difficult thing into something almost absurdly manageable. If public speaking terrifies you, your first difficult act is not to deliver a TED Talk. It is to voice an opinion in a small team meeting. It is to ask a question at a webinar. It is to record a 30-second video for yourself. The brain will scream. It will offer a dozen rationalizations for why you should remain silent, why it can wait for another day. Your only job in that moment is to acknowledge the scream. Thank your amygdala for its passionate, if misguided, attempt to keep you safe, and then move your body. Open your mouth. Press the button. The magic, and I use that word deliberately for it feels like alchemy, happens in the aftermath. After you have done the thing, and your heart is still hammering and the world has not ended, you are presented with a choice. You can choose to focus on the slight tremor in your voice, the one person who looked bored, the minor flaw in your execution, or you can choose to collect the evidence. You spoke. You survived. Perhaps someone even thanked you for your contribution. This is the data point that matters. This is the brick with which you build the edifice of your confidence. Belief does not float down from the heavens. It accretes particle by particle from the residue of accomplished deeds. We often fall into the trap of waiting for the feeling of readiness. We tell ourselves, I'll apply for that job when I feel more qualified, or I'll start that project when I feel inspired. This is the great procrastination of the spirit. Readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision. Inspiration is not a prerequisite for action. It is most often its reward. The author in me knows this intimately. One does not sit down at the keyboard brimming with confidence, assured of one's brilliant prose. One sits down with a feeling of dread, a blank page, and a brain screaming that one is a fraud, that the words will not come, that it is all pointless. The only way through is to type the first word, then the next. The action of writing, clumsy and uncertain as it may be, generates the evidence. I am a person who writes. From that action, a fragile belief begins to form. Perhaps I can write. And from the accumulation of thousands of such actions, a more robust confidence emerges. I am a writer. This principle, action first, belief second, applies to every facet of a life fully lived. The athlete does not first believe she can run the marathon. She believes it after she has logged months of grueling pre-dawn miles, each one a difficult thing done, while her body and mind pleaded for respite. The entrepreneur does not first believe his venture will succeed. He builds that belief invoice by invoice, sales call by sales call, each one a victory over the fear of rejection. The partner in a relationship does not first believe they are worthy of love. They build that belief through 1,000 small difficult acts of vulnerability, of apology, of choosing to connect when it would be easier to withdraw. This is the crucible in which character is forged. A life spent avoiding the scream of the amygdala is a life of quiet contraction, of safe choices and unfulfilled potential. It is a life lived in the shallow end of the pool, where the water is warm and predictable, but where one never learns the profound trust in oneself that comes from swimming in the deep, cold, open water. The struggle itself, the very act of moving forward amidst the internal protest, is what builds the resilience, the grit, the deep-seated knowledge that you are capable of handling discomfort and uncertainty. You are building a history for yourself, not of easy wins, but of hard-fought battles with your own limitations. So we must make a pact with ourselves to stop waiting. Stop waiting to feel confident to start the conversation. Stop waiting to feel ready to apply for the challenge. Stop waiting to feel inspired to begin the creative work. Your brain, in its beautiful, ancient, and often overly cautious design, will always present resistance. It is its job. Your job is not to vanquish the resistance, but to build the capacity to move alongside it, to carry it with you like a heavy pack on a long journey. See your life as a series of experiments in courage. Each day presents a small laboratory, a difficult email to send, a boundary to set, a skill to practice, a kindness to offer when it feels awkward. Your mission is not to achieve a flawless performance, but to execute the action. Collect the data, log the evidence. I did it anyway. Over time, this collection ceases to be a scattered pile of incidents and begins to form a narrative. It becomes the story you tell yourself about who you are. You are no longer the person who is afraid of public speaking. You are the person who speaks even when afraid. You are not the person who avoids hard conversations. You are the person who leans into them, because you have a history of surviving them. Your belief in yourself is no longer a fragile castle built on the sand of wishful thinking. It is a fortress built on the bedrock of lived experience, of 1,000 difficult things done while your brain screamed at you to stop. And from within that unshakable fortress, you find the freedom to become the person you were always meant to be, not by first believing you could, but by acting as if you already did.